Hello, welcome back to the Bioanxiety podcast. Today on the podcast, we have somebody very special. This is Jess, and she is the owner of Practically Perfect Potty Training, which is a potty training business here in New York. And I will let you talk more about it because you know more.
So I am a professional potty trainer. I know my SHIT, literally and figuratively. And I started my business just under 2 years ago now. After years of thinking about this and having people say this is what you should do with your life and you would be so good at this and you should turn this into a business. And I thought about it for literally probably about 10 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah, and then I actually started like creating my guidebook and everything during COVID. Shortly after I went through a pretty horrible divorce, I was kind of trying to find myself again, and I started working on my business then. But then, of course, COVID happened, and it was sort of like very hard to get things propelling at that point in time. People were losing their jobs, and people weren't working, and everything else. And so I was like, okay, we'll just put this on the back burner again. And then I actually just went on like a self reflection and love journey for nomadic with my dog, just me and my dog. And we went on a road trip around the US for 6 weeks in May of 2022. And I sort of had a moment in that trip that was the moment I knew I had to make this happen for myself. I needed to stop dilly-dallying and I needed to just do this and take the leap. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I was like holding back so much and so fearful. And one day I thought to myself, what are you so afraid of? Because even if it fails, you're in exactly where you are now. So what's the fear of failure? What is our fear of failure? What's your big fear of failure? Because if you try and it fails, you're not anywhere different. So let's just give this a go. So finally in August 2022, I launched my business. And it's actually going pretty well. And I just booked my 45th or 46th client. Yeah. And basically what I do is I do virtual and in-home help, but my in-home is the most popular, and particularly with special needs children, children on the spectrum, children with cerebral palsy, gross motor skill delays, developmental delays, speech delays, all these different things where potty training is much more difficult than a typical child, a neurotypical child. I come in and I will work with families for a certain number of days to try to help them work through the potty training. And I guide them through this whole process. And then we get these kids to learn to use the toilet. And for me, I think a lot of people would be like, where's the joy in this, or where's the passion? But for me, I get to literally take these families on this like childhood milestone journey, and they entrust me in this process that literally changes all of their lives and gives their kids this newfound independence and confidence and freedom. And it's so amazing to get to watch little beings blossom in front of my eyes. And I feel like privileged every time I'm with clients that they've chosen me to be a part of such a very intense, very stressful, oftentimes frustrating, very intimate process. And we go on this journey together. And I've created these incredible bonds with my families. And I just am like so grateful every day that I just took the leap and did it. Yeah.
That's awesome. So I know you mentioned it took like 10 years, which
Yeah.
some people never do.
Yeah.
Like, some people think about doing something their whole life and they don't do it.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that you had a lot of anxiety and fears of doing this.
Mhm.
And you asked yourself, what are you afraid of? What were some of those fears? And like, I guess, we can say anxieties because it's about career and work life. Like,
I like failing, like imposter syndrome, because I worked in childcare for a long time. My mom owned a daycare preschool. That's how I started learning how to potty train. Her mentor wrote a book about potty training in 3 days and taught us her method, and then we would use it in the Kids in My Mom's Center. So that's kind of how I started it. And then I worked as a nanny here in New York for a lot of families and a lot of very high net worth families. And I would help them with potty training, or I'd help friends with potty training. And that's when people started saying, like, you could create a business out of this. And I remember going like, gosh, maybe I could do that. But I still just kept thinking like, oh, are people really going to pay for this? And, what if I'm like not actually that good at this, or, what if I come across as an imposter or somebody who's a fraud, it was like it was like image. It was like the ability to actually create a business, and then all the business stuff too for me was so daunting, because that is not, I'm a creative, I'm a writer as well. I studied writing and literature when I went to college, and so I'm not like a business minded person. So that was scared the crap out of me, honestly. And I was like, how am I going to pull all of this off by myself and everything else? And so that would probably be like what hung over my head for all that time. And then also, like, when I was married, I didn't work. My husband made a lot of money, and I got to stay home basically. And so I in that process really lost a lot of myself and my confidence and my intellect and my ability to really be successful in life, despite the fact that I'd actually moved to New York to go to a very good college and like created this whole life for myself here. I got lost in myself, and I forgot who I was for quite a while, and I really doubted who I was and my strength and my strengths in this type of a realm and everything else. And so now that I've done it, it's rejuvenated in this in me, and this passion. It's like I tell people, it feels like my soul has been set on fire, because I know that I found my calling, and I know that this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and I know that I'm supposed to be helping families in this way. But I had to get past all this fear and what's the word I'm trying to think of, like these intrusive thoughts of, you're not good enough, you're not going to be able to do this, you're not worthy of this, you're meant to be a failure, everything else. And I think so many of us go through these feelings.
Yeah, for sure. So I mentioned that you are older, right? So it must be also like, because I believe you can do anything at any age.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't think that. I'm like,
yeah,
you're wrong about that.
You can, and just do it. And, I got divorced at 40 years old, and I was starting completely over again. And I was like, I'm a failure. I'm a complete failure. I failed at marriage. I failed at my life. I failed myself. I'm 40. Like, it's never going to be the same. I'm just screwed, honestly. And I really got buried in that for a while as well. And then, like I said, 2 years ago, so at 43 years old, I'm like, nope, I'm going to do this. I'm going to launch a business, and I'm going to see what happens. And in less than 2 years, my life is completely different.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I follow you on Instagram, and we are friends, and I get to see the amount of joy that you bring to these children. It's like, can I mention I've seen a little bit of how your process is, that when you first meet them, they choose a toy or a gift that once they succeed.
So it depends. A lot of times I just pick one out for them throughout the course of my week with them. They get a gift from me, and we do a ceremony at the end of the week, and I give them this ceremony and this gift. But I really get to know my kids individually, and everything for me is about individuality and finding a way to make this work for each child, because every child is so different. And this is a mental thing for the most part. I mean, obviously when we have delays and we have neurodivergence, then it can be physical as well, but it's all linked to the mindset and the mentality of it. And so much of it for me is creating this very zen, calm, fun environment that helps them claim their autonomy on the process and take hold of it for themselves and realize what this is going to do for them and why this is a positive for them, versus it being a fearful, scary thing, which honestly, every single day I am reminded of learning how to face fears, because that's what I have to literally do with my clients, So
it's an amazing skill to have. I hope you potty train my kids when I eventually have them. What kind of advice would you give somebody who's watching the podcast and is looking to start their own business?
So it's not for the faint of heart, I will say. It is a roller coaster at all times. And I kind of love to tell people that being a business owner, all the best parts of it are all the worst parts of it. It's all yours. It's all yours. Everything that happens is you, and it's amazing because you get to control it, but it's also so much pressure on yourself. But honestly, if you know in your gut that you have an idea that has the ability to create something for yourself, for others, whatever it is, take the leap and do it. And trust in yourself and trust in your gut and know who you are, and also lean on your community. Like, that's one thing I've learned a lot in the last few years, is like learning to lean on the people who love me and believe in me. Because you're going to have them, and they're going to be like your biggest supporters, and they're going to help you out in like amazing ways. Like Juicy helped me with my website, and because she just believed in my vision, and I've had other people do other things for me to make sure that like I move forward in this process. And so trust in yourself, trust in what you're doing, and just close your eyes and leap, basically, because that's what starting a business is. It's just being like, okay, I'm gonna do this. Okay, I'm really gonna do this. Like, okay, like you stand on the edge for a little while and you're like staring down at this water and you're like terrified, and then you're like, okay, and you just gotta like jump off and let out that blood curdling scream and let it go, and then do it. It is so scary, but honestly, like but like fear almost all the time is unfounded, actually. Like I said earlier, like fear is usually not even actually seated in reality. And so when you learn to like let go of fear and not let that overwhelm you, then you can take these chances that you never thought you could take, and then you just do something. And like I said, if it doesn't work out, you're in the same place you were before. So at least you tried, and at least you went for it, and at least you can say, hey, I did this. And you know what? Like when it does work out, it's truly like, I've never been so proud of myself in my life. Like in everything I've done in my life, nothing has made me feel as like alive and myself and authentic as I feel now, and excited and proud, and like so eager to see what the future holds. And like this is just the beginning for me, and it's so exciting, and it's so fun to get to experience this. And I know like when people love you, they watch it and they're excited for you too. And it's just like, so surround yourself with people who believe in you and love you and want this to happen for you, and then just do it.
It's also so rewarding what you're
Yeah.
doing, right? Because
Yeah.
like actually helping
Yeah.
people that are struggling with
Yeah. Yeah. And they're like, most of my clients are like they're calling me because they're at their breaking point with all of it. And so, you know, it is. And I remember last year I was in an Uber and I had a conversation with my Uber driver, and he's really wonderful. We had a really fantastic conversation, and we were talking about my business, and I was telling him what I do, and we were talking throughout it. And at some point, shortly before he drops me off at the train, he says, I hope you realized I'm so glad I got to talk to you today, because you're inspiring me to want to do more with my life. And he said, and you're living the dream. He said, you're doing a job that is helping others and doing good for this world that makes you feel really good and fulfilled, and you make good money doing it. He's like, that is the dream. And I was like, I looked at him and I said, thank you for that, because you know what? You're absolutely right. And sometimes you need a moment like that where you're just like, this is real. This is happening. And it feels so good to do something that truly affects other people's lives in a positive manner. And that comes back to you, you know?
And you can inspire a lot of people, like podcasts talking about it.
So,
Yeah. There are so many people are so afraid just to take
Yeah.
the leap. So how does somebody that needs their baby's potty trained help you?
So you can find me on my website, built by this amazing woman, and it is practicallyperfectpottytraining.com. I guess is there a www though?
I mean, no, you don't.
Yeah.
No, anymore.
You don't even have to do that anymore. See, I'm so untech savvy. This is why she had to actually build my website. And then you can also find me on Instagram at Practically Perfect Potty, or you can email me at practicallyperfectpotty@gmail.com. And I would love to speak to anybody who's struggling. I also do, like I said, I do in-home, and I also do virtual coaching as well. And I'm branching out a little bit now too into doing behavioral consulting and parent coaching for people, because a lot of times some of these potty behaviors are rooted in other behaviors. And so parents are telling me that they're saying that I'm helping them sort of work through some of these other behaviors, especially with toddlers. And so I'm really branching out in that way now as well. So
Okay. I like to ask one last question.
Okay.
It's a little cliche, but what is the one piece of advice you give yourself?
Stop worrying so much about what everybody else thinks and do things for yourself and just take risks and do it, because I wish I would have done this a long time ago. And I think that societal standards and societal expectations put so much pressure on us, particularly I feel like people in their like 20s feel this so intensely, and you think you're supposed to be at a certain place in life at all times, and then you measure yourself against somebody else, and then you feel inferior, and so you don't actually do the thing you wanted to do because now you feel inferior. And so stop feeling that way, stop thinking about where you're supposed to be, and just live for yourself and find your path. And also, if you're older, it's never too late either. Like, you can still find your path. So just stop worrying about everybody else and just be yourself and let yourself shine. Because when you find that authenticity, it beams out to the world, and it changes everything for you.
Well, thank you for sharing the story. I feel like I learned so much more about you, and I know you. Thank you all for listening.
Thanks, guys.
Jess, I will be putting her Instagram handle on the website.
Awesome.